We took out Tibetan flags about a kilometer away from the Bird's Nest Stadium where the opening ceremonies were happening, and we were taken down within 30 seconds. My foot was broken in two places. My back was broken. They slammed my face into the concrete. We had our shirts pulled over our faces, and then water. We were basically waterboarded, where they poured water on our faces. We couldn't breathe. And then after that, they pulled the shorts off of our faces, kicked us over, and I remember falling on my face and then looking over at Cesar, and he gave me this like nod, which I'll never forget for the rest of my life, which was like, this was a good fight. This was a good life.
What's going on? You're now listening to the Future Ancestors podcast. Alongside my co-host, Cass Serrano, I am Jason Insight. Now, for today's episode, we've actually been wanting this guest for quite a while, and I'm just pretty excited to have him on. So like I do with all my intros, let me get this started. Sometimes when we feel helpless when we see injustice in the world, sometimes examples help us see a roadmap showing that it's possible to make a change. Sometimes it takes a big brother to get us there, and that's what your protest safety kuya, Kalamendoza, has done. Being prepared and organized are the first steps in making your voice heard. Kalamendoza is a queer, hard-of-hearing, Filipino-American human rights defender, street medic, and community safety and mutual protection trainer. Kalayaan is the director of U.S. programs at Nonviolent Peace Force, whose mission is to protect civilians in violent conflicts through unarmed strategies. Kalayaan is also the co-founder of Cross Frontlines, a collective of social justice practitioners working alongside communities to build a safer and more just world by cultivating visionary organizing through training and movement support. For over a couple of decades, Kalayaan has been on the front lines of protests from Ferguson to Standing Rock and has won awards for his work in safety and security training. Countless activists while using nonviolent direct action. He is the creative force behind the Filipinos for Black Lives graphic utilized within our community in 2020. And if that imagery was reposted, printed, or even used as your profile picture, listen to the story of the person who reminds us who keeps us safe? We keep us safe. Welcome to the Future Ancestors podcast, Kalamendoza. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Kat. Jason. I'm so glad to be here. Like I legit, I've been, I love y'all's work. I think it's really important that we have storytellers from our community to uplift all of the different strands of our shared tapestry. So thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Thank
Oh,
you.
the honor is ours as
Yes,
well.
seriously. We have been wanting you for a long time. We've been following your journey, so thank you again. So do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
Yeah, I'll start. So we, like with all of our guests, this Future Ancestors talks about the Filipino American diaspora. So we always ask, where's your family from in the Philippines?
Mm.
That's where we like to start.
I love that question. My maternal side, my grandma, my Lola Inday is from oh my gosh, Capiz? Yeah, Capiz.
Mhm.
Because my mom liked to tell me that she was a witch growing up. So, or, and my dad's side is from Ilocos Norte, but we basically say Manila because that's where I was born. That's where my parents were kind of like raised. So, basic Manileño. Yeah.
Okay. So you got a little Visayan in you too with the Capiz there.
Yes.
So, Ilonggo myself. So I have to throw that out there. Big up to all the Visayans. Yeah.
So let's talk about your name, Kalayaan. What does it mean to you now, and like how has it changed over time?
Sure. So Kalayaan is it means independence, liberation, or freedom, depending on the context. And I really adopted it as who I am back in 2001 when I was doing work with the Tibetan freedom movement. And I learned from Tibetan, grandmas and aunties and organizers what it means to have to stand up against an insurmountable adversary who's trying to wipe your people out, and what solidarity looks like. So rather than doing what most Westerners would do and like take on another person's culture, because we don't do that, we don't colonize. I really wanted to lean into who we are as Filipinos, who our ancestors were, and I wanted to match their fierceness, their
Mm.
level of care and love, their bainihan, their kapwa. So for me, it's really kind of like a tether, a anchor to our ancestral roots, but also the values that I want to inhabit and live.
Mhm.
I love that.
So let's start from the beginning. What were you like as a kid? Were you loud, quiet, curious? How would you describe your younger self?
I was a very hypersensitive little gay boy that wanted everyone to be safe and happy. I remember growing up and being I would like cry at the most random things. Like if I saw a houseless person on the street, I didn't understand why they were houseless or what, what conditions, but I knew that it wasn't a good situation. So I think I've always been like this.
Mhm.
And growing up in high school, I was like that typical student government nerd. So I was in all, I kicked it with the kind of like the breakdancer Filipinos. I kicked it
Mhm.
with the preppy Filipinos. I kicked it with the racer Filipino, like everyone. I went to school in the east side San Jose, so it
Okay.
was primarily Filipino, Mexican, Vietnamese
Okay.
Mm.
there. So, yeah, and learned very early on that relationship building is really kind of one of the tenets of how we build safety within communities.
Mm.
Because at the time there's like a lot of beef between Filipino and Vietnamese gangs,
Mhm.
and that spilled over, and that even spilled over to the policies at the school where they used to do these sweeps of people that the administration thought were
Mm.
gangs, and I was caught up in one of those sweeps. And I remember even at that time, when um, the vice principal had me in the office with the San Jose PD, my first thing was like, they were trying to ask me questions. I said, I will remain silent. I need my parents and I need to see a lawyer.
How old were you?
I was 17, 16, 17. Yeah.
You
And
knew already.
that was because of the Filipino Youth Coalition, now known as PYC, or Filipino Youth Coalition. It was these like younger organizers that were either in college or freshly out of college that were mentoring kind of like the next generation. So it was because I went to their trainings,
Mhm.
and I learned how to respond, that I felt like a sense of like agency.
Mhm.
So I've always kind of like carried that understanding that our communities are what truly keeps us safe,
Yeah.
and that we need to be able to uphold and to hold firm on our fundamental human rights.
Mhm.
Wow.
He's like you. Because I think, because Kat's an empath,
Yeah.
and I see that from your response, and I was like, I see similar energy from what you're doing. So, like, I see that, but just being self aware, but unfortunately, having to be self aware in that situation as a child is
I
crazy.
know,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
But I love that you knew.
Yeah.
Like, thank God for the
Because it
coalitions
could
that
have
you were
turned
part
another
of
way. Yeah.
to know that. That's awesome. So, where did your sense of justice come from? Was it something that you were taught, or did you experience something?
I think it's ancestral, really, like not, future ancestors, right?
Yeah.
Because I when I was 6 years old, I think the first time I remember feeling like a sense of like injustice or like feeling tied to something more larger than I was watching the People Power Revolution on TV with my parents. I didn't really understand at the time, but I remember crying because it looked so powerful. And the narrative that was shared was that here is a unarmed, nonviolent revolution that was happening in the Philippines, led by everyday people against a government that had a dictator that's been a dictator for many, many years, who has all of the guns, all of the military, all of the weapons in the world. And it was like kind of in that moment, like I couldn't put words to it, but I just remember feeling just like overcome with like a sense of not pride, but like deep responsibility. And like that's, I don't know what that is, but that's what I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love that.
Can you take us back to the first time you felt called to action to stand up for something, and what sparked that moment for you?
Yeah, it's actually tied to the story about the vice principal in SJPD. Right after that, Filipino Youth Coalition organized a Not it was not a protest, but it was basically for us youth to speak at the board of supervisors meeting in Eastside San Jose. This is the first time I've ever spoken, and I remember going up there and like I was like shaking with my paper. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. And then I remember looking over and seeing a couple of the board of supervisors who fell asleep. And I remember immediately in that moment feeling like this like rage take over me, and I said, you know what, F this. And I remember one of our chants is what do we want? Justice. When do we want it now? So I got the I hit the uh pulpit or whatever. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. And if you can imagine that like as a wave over, and like those two board of supervisors woke up, but
Good
it
for you.
was really in that moment where I was like, oh my gosh, if we have each other's backs, we really could do so much. So it was like really in that moment that I got activated and called to action.
That's amazing. That's powerful. I still feel it. I told like I don't know, there's definitely a connection. As soon as he walked in, I was like, I feel it here. Like I'm just like I just want to hold him the whole
Hmm.
time. I'm like I just can feel I feel it. Like very, very, very powerful. That's amazing. So you spent decades doing nonviolent direction action, right? So what first drew you to that approach and what keeps you grounded in it today?
Yeah. I mean, our people showed us what it could look like and how it was effective. But really, as I grew older, nonviolent direct action, strategic nonviolence is a way for everyone to take action, right? I will never decry anyone that um, uh, in their tactics, but uh, I've learned to use nonviolence strategically. And some folks may disagree with that, which is totally real, right?
Hmm.
We, I, or we don't tell communities how to respond to violence, especially when violence is being enacted by the state, but rather, how do we create an even larger network of folks to come into the work?
Yeah.
So, for me, it isn't like a philosophical thing. Although I'm Buddhist, it's more like this is what works.
Hmm.
And if we want as many people as possible to feel engaged in social justice work, in liberation work, we need to make as many spaces for everyone to contribute, however they can. Everyone from students to parents to kids, like everyone has a role in our shared collective liberation and safety.
I love that you said that because especially right now with the protests that are going on, everyone is trying to figure out what to do if what they're doing is enough. Some want to protest, they're afraid to protest. So I love that you said that, you need everyone like where they are. I think that's important.
Is there a protest or action that still sticks with you? Something like you feel in your body or your spirit when you look back?
Yeah, I'll give a couple examples if
Mhm.
that's okay. I'll start off with trauma. In 2000, actually, in 2001, myself and thousands of both Tibetan and non-Tibetan supporters started preparing for the Beijing 2008 Olympics.
Mhm.
Once it was granted in, I believe, August 2001, we started training folks around the world. I was one of those folks. I was a trainer, and also I was getting prepared to go to Beijing. On August 8th, we were there for about a week beforehand. There was about 76 of us that were able to get visas to be in the country. And my action was with two other folks, Cesar Maxit and Jonathan Striving-Us. None of us were Tibetans, but uh, my Tibetan Amala likes to say I look Tibetan. So that kind of figures in a little bit later. But basically, we took out Tibetan flags in front of about a kilometer away from the Bird's Nest Stadium where the opening ceremonies were happening.
Yeah.
And we were taken down within 30 seconds.
Mhm.
My foot was broken in two places. My back was broken. They slammed my face into the concrete. They did the same to Cesar. And interestingly enough, they only followed Jonathan, and I think it's because he was a really pretty white boy. And I've told him this, and he knows this.
Mm.
But it's really interesting how race figures into the perceptions, like when when we were out there. So right after that, we were taken away, kind of like spread eagle. All of our stuff was taken off of us, and then we were put into brought to a park We had our shirts pulled over our faces, and then water. We were basically waterboarded, where they poured water on our faces. We couldn't breathe, and we were on our knees. And I remember remembering there's like a Human Rights Watch report that I read that had like images of folks that have been executed by the Chinese government, and I was in that exact position. What they then did was tie our arms behind our backs in uh, using some kind of like string, and they sat on our necks and put us in what are called stress positions, but basically torture. And then after that, they pulled the shorts off of our faces, kicked us over, and I remember falling on my face and then looking over at Cesar, and he gave me this like nod, which I'll never forget for the rest of my life, which was like, this was a good fight. This was a good life. And that whole thing that happens when, like in movies where like your life flashes, yeah, that legit happens. I heard Enya, and then I saw my mom, I saw my dad, I saw my sister,
Like,
all of those things. So, and um we were interrogated, put in solitary for 18 hours, and then they specifically were, I felt like they were harsher with me because they thought I was Tibetan.
mm,
They even brought a Tibetan interrogator who came in, whose name was oh my gosh, it was either Lobsang or Tashi, but it was a big Tibetan guy. And he was like, just tell me that the Dalai Lama told you to do this. And I was like, no, I'm just here as a tourist. That was our whole thing. It's like, we just, um, so that way, if we got caught, we had like a specific script.
yeah.
The interesting thing was like, he brought my bag. He's like, is this your bag? And I was like, yes. And then he took something out, and a Tibetan flag fell out. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, oh, for reals? But what he did was like, he picked it up very like
Gently.
gently, and then he put it at the highest shelf, which in Tibetan culture, you don't, anything that is on the ground is like disrespected. And the fact that he put it at the highest shelf, I was like, homie, are you trying to like tell me something right now? But after that, we were processed. Our visas were canceled. We were banned from going back to China for life. And the last kind of like humiliation is they made me crawl through the Beijing airport on my knees because like my foot was already swelling out of my shoe from being broken, and they wouldn't let Jonathan or Cesar help me up, or they wouldn't let the staff get a wheelchair for me. And I remember in that moment, I was like looking at them. I was like, if I ever see you in Queens, I will. Like all my nonviolence went away. So that was, I mean, that stuck with me for many years. Like it's still.
I mean,
Yo,
yeah, that would stick with me too. I
God.
mean, I don't know if I would go back, to be honest. Like, I don't know if I would continue after that.
No, that's real. That's real. But the interesting, like for me, like the state was horrible, but the people were so lovely.
No.
Everyone in Beijing was so nice.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that when we hear these narratives that are, against governments, because we're hearing that right now against the Chinese government, we need to delineate between governments and people.
Yes.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, like I love Chinese culture. I love Taoism, like all of that. I wish I could go back. That's why I go to Taiwan every so often. But yeah, not going back. Yeah, it took a long while for me to even be able to see like East Asian men in and that's one of like my activation points. If I see an East Asian man in a uniform, I'll immediately go into that
Yeah.
that state. So
It's a trigger. I mean, that's rightfully so. Oof. So how do you personally prepare, like spiritually, emotionally, mentally, when you're doing these like high risk, high pressure situations?
yeah, so for the Beijing example, what we did is we trained like for 7 straight years. We were out in the deserts of San Diego. We were out in rice paddies in northern India, in Himachal Pradesh. We were in Germany at Dusseldorf in like a Dharma center. So basically preparing our bodies and minds for that. One of the ways that we prepared was also writing for the folks that were going to Beijing, is we called it a come to Buddha moment, where we wrote 3 letters to our families. One letter apologizing for being imprisoned or being arrested, another letter for being put in a laogai or reformed through labor camp, and the third letter for apologizing for being executed. And what this essentially does was to give folks time to reflect if they actually wanted to do this.
Mhm.
A lot of people pulled out at the end, but I committed and I said, this is the very least I could do to show solidarity in this moment. So it's a lot of it is, and that's how we train folks in protest safety. It's not all of this. None of this matters if this, and this isn't
Yeah.
prepared,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you don't have a sense of like situational awareness, if you don't know how to fall into like a OODA loop where you're observing, orienting, deciding, and acting on and on a constant, then it you know in a dangerous situation you can be a danger to yourself or others.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is preparation. That's why I tell folks, we prepare, we don't panic.
I love that. And now, how long were you preparing for before you went to Beijing?
Beijing, 7 years.
Oh, wow.
7 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trying to do the math. I'm like, I will be. I'm kidding.
So thinking of that and your awareness of being at different places around the world doing this work, I'm not shocked that when I'm it goes back to, for we try to speak for the Filipino community, and as I mentioned in your intro, one of the things that we first experienced about you was the Filipinos for Black Lives artwork, and knowing that it's not, you didn't create it solely just for our community, you did one for every background. Hearing what you just said kind of puts that in perspective. But what inspired you to create that series and then eventually seeing them on the front lines during protests?
Yeah, so I actually created it in 2019 for the 5-year anniversary of the murder of Eric Garner here in New York City.
Hmm.
And it was like a bunch of my friends were all API. Were like, hey, we need to have a sign. So I was like, let me just jump on Canva real quick and just made like the Asians for Black Lives. And it had gone like I think some celebrities had gotten a hold of it, and then it just kind of like went everywhere. What I saw was like, I was like, okay, this is beautiful. Like what it had so much more reach than my trainings or like my talks or anything that I've done before could have. And it brought in a level of solidarity within our communities. A lot of folks were looking at, you know, Captain David Fagan,
Hmm.
during the American occupation of the Philippines, and seeing that our communities are interlinked, our oppressions are interlinked, so our liberation and our safety are interlinked.
Mm.
And for me, it was like a way. I was like, this is beautiful, and like folks were asking, like I had, um, uh, re, indigenous folks from Okinawa asking for versions. I had like uh Tibetans, Nepalese, like everyone, like anyone that had asked, I was like, yeah, give me like a second,
Wow.
because like this is right,
Yeah.
at the height of the pandemic, where folks were just like looking for some way to take action in this moment. But just like seeing little kids
Okay.
carrying it, I was like, oh my god.
Mhm.
But it reminded me the importance of art. Not that I'm not an artist. That was on Canva. Let me be very clear. It got like dragged for that. People, you're not an artist. I was like, I didn't say I was. Um,
But you stepped up and you did something
yeah, I was
so
like,
that way,
everyone can,
and
right?
everyone connected to it
Mhm.
Yeah.
for a reason.
And our people, yes, we have interlocking history and our own dealings with, the US. But I think generally speaking, everyone say, hey, who they identify ethnically, like, I am this, I am not black, but I still stand for you. So I think that spoke volumes, because there are a lot of people of our background and other ethnic background who don't.
Yeah.
So it was that, see, even on a Canva app, spoke volumes. So yeah, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, never, this is the first time meeting you in person. I had that as my profile picture, didn't know you, but yeah, it spoke to me too, and it was on there.
I think it was a clear reflection of folks' like solidarity, right? And
Yeah.
how folks are down. And I think a lot of folks didn't necessarily put, they may have grown up with black family members or within the black community, or have very deep ties, and may not have been like, oh, I don't want to make a mistake in activism, so didn't know how to engage in it. But I was like, we don't need to, we're going to make mistakes.
Hmm.
As if we're true allies, we're going to make mistakes, we're going to be accountable for them, and then we're going to grow.
And that's the point. Yes. Like it's okay to make a mistake.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we always say that it's okay to make a mistake, but people won't move unless they feel like it's perfect. So
Yeah.
I love that you did what you did because
Hmm.
it was well received,
Hmm.
you know?
Thank you.
So like the rest of the United States, Filipinos are divided politically. What have you seen as the best way to prove to those who don't think they're affected that the Filipino community is not safe?
Hmm. I use something called the spectrum of allies, which is it was developed by uh, organizers back in the day. Basically, it's has like active ally, neutral, and then active opponent.
Mm,
And then I look at the interactions that I have because like I'm old, I'm tired, and I think everyone should do like an assessment. How much
Hmm.
capacity do I have
yes.
in this moment? How much am I consenting into this conversation?
Mm,
Because I think it's important for us to engage with our family members, our communities on this situation, but also it's really important for us to think about how much can I give into this right now? And
yeah.
like how far along are they in that spectrum of allies? Are they an active opponent or are they closer to neutral?
Hmm.
I have chosen to find the folks that are kind of like neutral and a little bit on the inactive opponent side strategically because I only have so many hours in the day. I am not gonna argue with Tito June on Facebook,
Hmm.
who's that became a lawyer somehow when he's like retired and not a lawyer. And so it's really about like what do you consent into and how do you strategically utilize your resources in those moments.
Mm, I love that. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of self-preservation lately too.
Yeah.
Because I used to go at it, but now I'm like, yeah, I'm tired.
Yeah.
We're too grown. Like, there's a lot of resources out there. If you really cared about it, you could figure it out, you know?
Exactly.
And then that energy too ends up getting wasted. But it's like, I know me, sometimes I'm trying to bite myself. And then I'm like, all right. But sometimes I don't. And then I have to clap back myself. So, it's in that moment, but I'm kind of glad you have that because that's part of your work and it's every day that's what people know you for. So it's different like me and we can go out in the streets, people run it's not the first thing that they're going to bring up to. I think
That's true.
that's going to end up being
Yeah.
already initiating the conversation during your work.
Yeah.
So you work locally, obviously over here in New York, and also globally from Ferguson and New Zealand and the rest of the world. So what have those experiences taught you about real solidarity?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. Every single action I have ever been to, whether it was in Ferguson, or Standing Rock, or in Aotearoa, New Zealand, is that community always rises
Mm,
to protect one another. In Ferguson, it was aunties who we had just done like a de-escalation training with, who were coming up to us telling us that they were able to de-escalate the cops from shooting at their community. And like
mm,
in that moment, I was like, this is what kind of dystopian world, and this is back in 2014, what kind of dystopian world are we when we have aunties who are doing that, who just the previous week were wiping tear gas and pepper spray off of babies um, uh, in strollers. In Standing Rock, I saw that from indigenous leaders like LaDonna Brayville Allard, Winia Locke, who deeply cared for and had a decolonized approach at action. They were like, this is not a protest. This is us fighting for land back.
mm-hmm.
And the level of care and love, like we were there as human rights observers, and one of the aunties was like, have you eaten yet? And I was like, no, not yet. Like our policies, we couldn't, but there's no way we could do that without offending. So I was like, okay, yes, we'd love to eat.
Yeah.
And the auntie was like, okay, after you're done eating, we need you to wash the dishes.
Oh.
Awesome. And I learned that solidarity can look like washing dishes, right?
Yeah.
It is about service. It is about finding and identifying the needs of the group most directly affected by violence and then showing up. Not everyone needs to be in front of a mic. Not everyone needs to be in a vest. But everyone can support in some way. In Aotearoa, during the occupation of Himatau in 2019, the Maori community was just like so welcoming and kind, and they're like, "We'll get you a tent." And I was like, "No, no, I'm good. I'll figure it out. I'll sleep outside." It was like winter there while it was summer here, but um, and they had an entire system, a care system in place that was grounded in their cultural protocols.
Mm.
Anytime a group or community would come on board, they would do, I think, a karanga, which is like one person would do like a chant from one end, and the elders would welcome folks. So there was a group of Muslim folks and Palestinians that came to bring food,
Mhm.
and I remember taking a picture and like crying
Mhm.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
because the that common denominator in these actions is, I mean, it calls back to what Mr. Roger, I grew up in the or was born in the 70s. So he said, like, he went to his mom and said, when things are horrible in the world, I'm afraid what I do. And she said, look for the helpers. There
Mm.
will always be helpers. So how do we don't need to all be activists, but I think it's more important that we all be helpers
Yeah.
in these
Sure.
moments. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Just showing up where you are in the moment.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't show up to house parties with no,
Yeah.
empty-handed.
Mm.
So, especially for movement spaces, we don't show up empty-handed. We think about like what does the community need?
Yeah.
And people do this so naturally everywhere.
Oh, it's
And
beautiful.
Yeah.
yeah, then that's the story that's never captured.
Mm. Well, thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
with us.
Mhm.
So, what does it mean to be in right relationship with a movement or a community, especially one that you're not a part of?
Mm. Yeah, that's a it means coming from a place of transparency, communication, working from a place of consent, understanding the culture as much as possible. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, whether it's the Tibetan community, the Maori community, or the Black community in Ferguson or in Charlotte, I did my homework first.
Mm. You
Like,
would go do your homework before you went out? Okay.
exactly. Yeah, just like in Standing Rock, I tried to learn some Lakota, Dakota, Nakota, so I could respond back to elders who are talking to us. It's those like little things that go a long way,
Yeah.
right? So doing some of your homework, figuring out how do you show up in a way that you're not like taking up space,
Yeah.
but you're adding value to the space,
Yeah.
right? Um, yeah, yeah. I think it's just like being courteous and just being
A
kind and
good
like,
human.
yeah, being a
Yeah.
good human.
So with that and what you learned, how's your idea of freedom have changed? Seeing different cultures and going across different borders, how is that idea of freedom evolved for you?
Freedom means to me, and it kind of still does when since I was younger, when communities have the resources that they need to thrive, that's when people can truly inhabit their fundamental human rights. When folks have a roof over their head, food, water, clean air, a place for leisure, like these very basic things. These are not, and they should not be luxuries. Um, they're essential. So for me, I learned that freedom was part of that process is to facilitate. Sorry, my stomach's growling. I,
Are you
I
hungry?
fast. No, no, I fast usually. So
Oh, okay.
this is like around the time that my stomach grumbles.
What I mean.
Um, so basically, yeah, just uh, freedom is both the act of inhabiting your rights, but also the act of ensuring that those rights can happen, right? So when we fight for freedom, we don't just should not just fight for ourselves or our communities, but for everyone. Because if any community is under attack, if any community is not safe, then all of our communities are under attack, and all of our communities are
Mm,
unsafe.
that's right.
So you've been doing this work for over 20 years. What do you do for your own peace, joy, and yeah, just your sense of it all, you know?
I go to Asia.
Okay.
Mm.
um I mean, there's that, there's being with family, there's the usual things. I tend to be more of a I need to cocoon after an action because like you're giving so much, you're constantly
Yeah.
on. Folks are both literally and figuratively uh crying on you, and like you want to hold space, you want to, you part of the work is recognizing folks as humanity, so like it's a lot.
Yeah.
And doing this is important to take those breaks and to go to places where there's healthcare for everyone,
Mhm.
where folks are have access to education. So like when I go back to Asia, I was like, why did we leave?
Yeah.
I get it.
Mhm.
And why did we leave? So um it's yeah, um it's kind of the everyday as a travel, but also just finding moments of beauty
Yeah.
in the day-to-day is I think one of the most important things, because it's important for us not to just like scan for threats,
Yeah.
but also to scan for those like for beauty, for joy, for awe in these times.
Yeah. And how long do you take a break for when you go to Asia? Or like in between, let's just say how
Yeah,
long.
so I was just I was just in Japan. Yeah. Um like at least 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, at least
Okay.
2 weeks. Yeah. I was like, I don't have kids, I don't have a partner, so this is the
Do
life
your
that I'm gonna
thing.
live. Yeah.
Yes, do your thing. Okay, good. That's a good gauge. I was just wondering for myself. I'm like, how long do I give myself when, because I may not be doing like be out there in the streets, but just with people in general, when they emotionally dump or
Yeah.
trying to, I mean, it's really crazy out here right now. So I'm gonna give myself 2 weeks, even just to stay at home by myself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's real.
my social battery is like
It's
negative, or
draining.
it's been like that,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, you need that time
Yeah.
to like recharge. So I
Yeah.
get it.
Definitely.
2 weeks take as long as you, but then yeah, I know sometimes you got to go back, and when you and especially nowadays, there's more. It's been ramped up,
Yeah.
so I can understand. But yeah, how are you gonna fight if you're not at your full
Full percent.
capacity to do so?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, what's something that you had to unlearn that made you a more grounded organizer?
These are really great questions. I mean, trying to be a martyr. Try to, I mean, I grew up Catholic, I'm Filipino, so I have all of those,
Mhm.
right? Like,
All that programming.
yeah, all of that colonial programming. But like, I'll just be very real. It wasn't until very recently that I made that decision, because for most of my adult life, since I was 16, 17, I was always like, I'll give it up for the cause and the community and whatever else for our people. But now,
Mhm.
and I was talking to Dr. Connie One from API Women Lead, who's an amazing organizer. And I was like, I actually want to live. And I know that there was like a kind of like a nihilistic streak in that martyrdom, but I was like, I deserve to be happy. I deserve to see the world like a, a kinder and more safer and more just world, the one that I'm fighting for.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was unlearning that my worth is tied to what I can produce.
Mhm.
And that's what capitalism does to us, right?
Mm,
What we produce is who we are, and that's horrible.
yeah.
So yeah, and it's an ongoing process, just like, decolonization never ends, right?
It really
It's
doesn't. I feel like once I get to one level, there's like a whole other level that I'm like, what? It's so deep rooted.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my gosh, is this ever going to end? I don't know. TBD.
Yeah. A lot of folks have, said, well, how do we stop being anti-black? And I was like, we can't. It's an ongoing process. We need to actively address the anti-blackness within ourselves and our communities. We need to address the misogyny, because anti-blackness and white supremacy are not phenomenon that just like happen. They are the water that we are in, right? They are not the shark, they are the water.
Hmm.
So it's important for us to know that it is an ongoing process. No one becomes completely woke and enlightened
Mm.
like a social justice Buddha, right? It's more like we do our best to do as little harm as possible, to take accountability for the harm that we've done, and also to come from a place of solidarity and care.
I love that. It's powerful. So, who are some creatives or spiritual voices that ground you when things get really heavy for you?
These are such good questions. I've been Buddhist since I was like 11. One of them is His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who just celebrated his 90th birthday a few days ago. But also it is the organizers like T.L. Pritchard, who's a Maori feminist organizer, activist,
Mhm.
culture holder. Winia Locke, who's Lakota Dakota Anishinaabe. Um, I mean, my spirituality comes from the folks that are at the front lines, and the folks that are not just at the front line of protest, but the front lines of protecting their communities, right? Um, that's where I find like my grounding,
Mm.
because they move at such a deliberate and intentional level, and it's not about ego. It's not about I'm gonna get on the front of Vogue because of this,
Yeah.
because I see a lot. I'm not gonna name names, but I've seen a lot of that back in Ferguson, and throughout the years. So it's looking to the folks that are on the ground, who are still maintaining their humanity in spite of the fact that a system wants to deprive them of that humanity.
Yeah. Um, so do you have any Filipino ones? I'm just curious.
Oh yeah. Oh, so like organizer or like a
Yeah,
spiritual.
someone that you refer to when things get heavy.
I mean, I know it's gonna sound super corny, but like my parents.
Oh no, I
Hmm.
love that.
My mom taught me how to be an organizer for the first time, because she would be she knew all the chismes, but she knew how to leverage it in a way that, oh, I heard that you need this. I can make, bibingka for you next week if that's okay. So how do you?
She did good with what she heard.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that. She didn't like enable it.
Hmm.
She tried to fix it.
exactly.
That's beautiful. That's where you get it from.
I definitely get it from my parents. Like my dad is who I look to for. He like he's always been like dignified and kind, and like upholds honor in a way that I want to reflect that. So it's really my parents.
Shout out to mom and
Yeah,
dad.
shout
That's
out.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's inspiring too, because
Yeah.
it's not everyone's family aligns with maybe your ideals. So when you have that, and then they help raise who you are, it's a blessing. So you got to honor that. And I think we always talk about that too, is because within our community we all beef too. Like, and I think the one thing is we are definitely not all in solidarity. So it's, yeah. Oh,
Unfortunately.
yeah, those are the difficult conversations. Wait, hold on,
Oh,
the
the
light
light is
went
on.
off.
Do you have another battery or
I do not. I think I have to plug it in.
do we need it or does it?
We don't really.
No? Okay,
You
good.
sure? Okay. All right. So let's talk about, you've been inspired, but you've uh, caused inspiration yourself by co-founding Across Front Lines. So let's talk about what inspired you to co-found it, and what does the work look like today?
Yeah, so Across Front Lines was created back in 2016. I was at Amnesty International, and I really wanted to have like a space where my friends and the people I love and care about, who we were all on the ground together. How can we show up in this moment, and like also, how do we create uh, something that can provide resources for the community. We didn't want to tie it to like a 501(c)(3), so it's more of like a collective, a grassroots collective than anything else. And my work with Nonviolent Peace Force was really inspired when I was helping to build the Human Rights Observer program at Amnesty USA. I was looking at Nonviolent Peace Force's work around unarmed civilian protection, which I was like, that's not real. That sounds like some hippy dippy stuff. And then as I was looking at the reports coming out of South Sudan, Iraq, Myanmar, in places that are considered war zones, to see how everyday community members utilize unarmed civilian protection in keeping themselves safe, whether it is South Sudanese women who are from the internally displaced people's camp, supporting women, elders, and kids to get from there to sources of water and stopping armed actors from killing them. It's pretty huge. And this is not new. These are ancestral technologies.
Mhm.
And it's all grounded in relationship. It's all grounded in understanding the local context and following and centering those most directly affected by violence.
That's heavy, because it's just, yeah, you're talking about the simple necessity, like just getting water.
That's
It's
crazy.
And you have to have a plan for
Yeah.
that.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I just had like that's crazy. Just to get wow, the things that we take our privilege that we take for granted, right?
Yeah.
So, what are some risks people often overlook when it comes to frontline work? And what types of training or care should we be focusing on right now?
Yeah, so risks that we're seeing right now are a heightened use of commonly used munitions, otherwise known as riot control agents like tear gas, pepper spray, rubber bullets, beanbag rounds, baton rounds. All of these things are innocuously called like less than lethal weapons, when in fact they can do extreme damage or even cause death for folks, whether that's internal. Damage. In Standing Rock, there was a water protector who had her arm basically blown off with a flashbang.
Oh my God.
Um, I've treated folks who have been shot in the back with pepper balls, which are like these little, almost like paintballs that are filled with capsaicin or some other irritant. And so there's the physical risk. There's also the psychosocial risks, right?
Mm,
Where folks burn out, where folks get re-traumatized. And what I always tell folks is we do not always need to be quote unquote on the ground. What I've learned from disabled organizers and activists like Mia Mingus, Alice Wong, and others is that there is a role for folks to do like what we call digital unarmed civilian protection. So y'all remember the Matrix?
yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, so remember the operator, or
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Tank's brother,
Yeah.
basically serving as an operator, and we had this in at many actions where someone basically had two computers open. They were listening to the police scanner. They were watching the news. They were looking at different live streams, and they were feeding real time information to us on the ground to tell us like, hey, the cops look like they're creating like they're cordoning or kettling everyone in,
Wow.
or they're starting to use flashbangs on the left side. You need to get people out
Okay.
of there. So there's a lot of roles that folks can take in this. But yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Man. I'm sorry, like, cause I think all these things, like, you see it on TV, but then you being there, and you're speaking from experience. It's not just like a movie. You know what I mean? I think that people kind of disassociate themselves with the actual work on the ground, and then yeah, look, maybe people who are more technologically savvy can provide that assistance in that way, and it's oh yeah, it's a great help, and you can save people's lives in the process. So
Mm.
They're doing it now, like with the ICE app where
mhm.
they're letting,
Yeah.
I mean, that's beautiful. I was like, yeah, hell yeah. Let's go.
Yeah, everyone. I mean, those are like developers are like, how do I
Yeah.
show up right now?
Yeah.
So we always need to ask ourselves like, what gifts do we have to
Mm.
offer? And I just want to take a moment to invite folks when they are at an action to make sure that they have a aftercare protocol. We call it a home safe protocol.
Mm.
So for our actions, we let everyone know on the signal thread, I'm home safe. And then people practice a 5 beautiful things exercise.
Mm.
What that is they go around their home or wherever they're safe and they use their situational awareness rather than looking for threats. They're looking for moments of beauty or things of beauty. So they might see a firefly next to their apartment, which I did in Queens, which I was, oh my god. Or they might see like an old love letter that someone had sent them, or they might walk by a mirror and be like, damn, I look good today. But it's really
Yeah.
important for us to know that we have the tools to be able to de-escalate ourselves once we
True.
get home, right? So that way we don't come from a place of being re-traumatized by the state or non-state actors.
It kind of separates yourself from that moment.
Hmm.
Okay, so I know there's some people listening to this episode who actually might want to get involved. So, for someone listening out there who wants to get involved but feels overwhelmed with all the details of what it involves, where's a good place to start?
I think just looking at your mutual aid, local mutual aid network
Mm-hmm.
or group, like every borough here in New York has a mutual aid group. I know South Brooklyn Mutual Aid is one of the ones that I love. That used to be run by Whitney Who, but basically, how can I show up right now? It's not just at protests where we need folks. It's distributing food to our both like our houseless and also elders,
Mm.
right? It's creating these networks of care because protests kind of like there's a rhythm to them, but also the needs are always going to be there. So if folks are like, I really want to, dedicate this, look at what you can do in your community first, right? And then once you go from there, start looking at preparing yourself. Like, what do you need in order, or what do you want to do when you're at an action? Are you just there as a protester, which is fine, or if you're like, actually, I'm a nurse, holler Filipinos, right? A nurse, doctor, lawyer, or if you have a certain skill set, talking to organizers and being like, so what do you all need,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And doing your research beforehand and like knowing what the needs are on the ground, because like I know a lot of folks have been like, build community, look for community, but many people are like, I don't know how to do that,
Yeah.
right? And that's very telling in a capitalistic society where we're individualized rather than collectivized,
Yeah.
right? So get to know who your neighbors are. Throw a uh, cookout or a barbecue like this summer, and just get to know who people are in the neighborhood,
Hmm.
because that's a very first start to really taking action. And once you get through that, look for organizations like mutual aid groups, like collectives, grassroots groups, and other larger organizations to be involved in. So yeah.
All right.
That's awesome. So, what do you hope future generations of organizers or freedom fighters inherit from your work and your presence?
Wow.
Mhm.
um that this is our ancestral lineage. This isn't something that, you know, some hippie white person in Berkeley can imbue on us, right? That we inherently have revolution in our blood. We inherently have this need to decolonize in our blood. And epigenetically, we carry this. And I'm hoping that future generations see a sense of and inhabit a sense of agency and autonomy when taking action. And you don't need to be like, I didn't know that this was a like a livelihood or like a job.
Yeah.
Right? Again, my mom was always like, go to the post office, like
Yep.
stop going to protest. So looking at ways that I hope that they leave recognizing that this is something that we carry. It's a gift. It's an ancestral gift,
Hmm.
and that we should be hold our heads up in a dignified way, because this is who we are as people.
Thank you for saying that.
Yes.
Where is mom and dad? They're in the Philippines?
No, they're in Florida.
Mhm.
They're in
If they
Orlando,
visit
Florida.
you, please, we would love to have them on.
Oh my gosh.
We would love to know who birthed you, the work that you do.
They don't speak English.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
just kidding. No, they do, but I don't want them to.
You don't want them to tell
Oh
us
my
all their
gosh.
songs.
No, I love them, but
See,
they are not.
just like everybody else, we're embarrassed of our parents. So,
They're not media trained.
yeah.
Mom, dad, I love you, but you're not
I
media
love
trained.
that though.
Yeah.
No.
So, what's next for you? Not just as an activist, but as a person who's still growing and living fully.
Um, I'll be very real. I'm looking at early warning indicators that would precipitate a possibility where I would need to leave the US.
Mm.
I am a naturalized citizen. I have been very vocal about this administration since version 1.0, and I know it's a privilege, but this is part of the reason that I never wanted to have kids. Or I mean, I always wanted to have kids, but I decided not to have kids or a partners. The work that and yeah, the work that
Exactly.
I do specifically, and I taking uh, ownership over it. Um, Kind of like opens me up to certain risks.
Of course.
So I'm trying to think about what that looks like, but also I'm getting ready for a trip to Japan and the Philippines. So you got to find balance,
I
right?
love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, finally, where can people find you, support you, follow you, and all the work that you're doing?
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram at Kalamendoza. Or please check out our website at nonviolentpeaceforce.org. There's more. If you want to be inspired, if you're like, this world sucks, please read the case studies in places like South Sudan, in places like Myanmar, in places like Iraq, in places like the US, where communities are really holding on to their safety, their security, and their human rights. Because, like, we're not alone in this. This is not a new thing, and we have the ability and the resiliency to navigate through horrible situations. So yeah, that's yeah. So Instagram, Nonviolent Peace Force.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you for being
Right,
here. That's
thank
it.
you.
thank you. Sorry. Can I just say one thing?
Yeah,
Yes,
go for it.
please.
I want to just, like, really, really deeply from the bottom of my heart thank both of you. The role of storytellers and of artists, not just within communities but within movements, is so vital, because the narrative work that y'all do is essential to changing hearts and minds. Like, the work that I do on the ground, yeah, it's helpful, but when folks take ownership of, like, I can change I can change the narrative, I can change the harmful story that's being told, and that's what y'all do. Is like, you uplift voices, you share what our community, all of the beautiful facets of our beautiful community. So I just want to say so much love and appreciation.
Thank
you.
you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
You can get me. I get emo real quick. I won't lie.
Let's play a game real quick.
Yes,
Do you mind if we
we
play
gonna
two
go
games
and
real
get-
quick?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
It's gonna take us like 5
All
minutes.
right.
Okay.
So we're gonna start with our this or that portion. Yeah, one or the other. You can just pick the first thing that you.
And pick one, please. Everyone's like, well, it's this one, but I could do that too. I'm like, yeah, that's the point. You have one.
Oh, I like being decisive.
All right. Would you like to start?
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
So a big protest energy or quiet one-on-one organizing.
Big protest energy, because I know how to navigate it.
Okay.
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 Facilitating a training or marching in the streets.
Facilitating a training.
Okay. Philippine countryside or global city movement.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Oh yeah, sure. Philippine countryside or global city movement.
Oh, Filipino countryside. Provincia all the way. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Dancing at a community celebration or deep convo at the after party.
Oh, dancing, because I need to dance. I think we all need to dance. It's so, yeah, vital. Yeah.
Love that.
Okay.
And last one, pack light and move fast or pack everything and be prepared.
Pack light and move fast always.
Okay.
I learned that actually as we were going. I was like, oh, okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we got one more game that we play, and it's our rapid fire portion. So the first thing that comes to mind, just let us know. Okay, so I'll start this one. A cause you dropped everything to support.
Oh my God. I mean, all of them. I know. Sorry, I know that's
No,
not-
no.
But
That's fine.
whenever, if a community invites me, I will show up.
Mm,
Okay.
I love that. One Filipino dish you could eat every day.
My mom's sinigang. These are really hard ones. My mom's sinigang. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Song that always lifts your mood.
It's actually like a track from 1998 from DJ Thomas Trouble called "Man in the Moon." He's like a trance DJ from the Bay Area.
I'm gonna have to look
And
that one up.
Yeah.
That brings me back to my party days.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that for you. Okay, a quote or mantra you come back to often.
We keep us safe.
Love.
Yes. And then last one. If you weren't doing this work, what would you be doing?
If there was no social injustice, I would be like a cook running like a taverna or something in the Philippine countryside that would train folks on how to do like ecotourism hospitality, but not in like a colonial way where we're being exploited, but rather like we have the consent of our indigenous relatives. We have, communities that want to do this, that want to highlight what's there. And like to feature the beauty of our, of the Philippines, like the natural beauty, without the colonial exploitation of it.
You've thought about this before, haven't you?
Every
Yeah.
day.
That was a real good answer.
That was a one sentence too. That was like a run on right there. But you got it all in there.
Yeah, you did.
Thank you. And you know what? We're not gonna go in another rant and rave, but hearing that I love because I'm getting a little annoyed with the commercialization of ube right now. So I'm just like, and not. Yeah, there's fake ube
resources
going
in
around. Just because it's purple doesn't mean it's ube.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
There's a
Taro.
difference.
so when I hear that, yeah. Oh yeah, when they try to flip taro and I try to get some boba and I'm like, nah, this is it. This is not it. So I totally feel you on that one.
Thank you so much again for coming. Thank you for being here
Thank you.
Very much.
and for sharing your wisdom.
Remember, you can catch us on futureancestors.tv on your YouTube and Instagram, as well as anywhere you can find podcasts. Once again, thank you, Kalamendoza, for joining us on this episode of Future Ancestors.
Thank you. Peace and Olympia, Greece.
I love
Nice.